All right, Dr. Matt here. So I'm with Dr. Joel Noland, and this is
Hey,
kind
Dr.
of
Matt.
like this is kind of like a new thing we're doing. Um, Me and Dr. Joel were talking about just doing a podcast and talking about faith and medicine, faith over fear, and just trying to empower people, patients, even fellow practitioners to live above all the noise. And there's so much opportunity for health accumulation, for health opportunity, and often we hear all the stuff about that's not for health opportunity. And so Dr. Joel is a super enthusiastic, positive family man, awesome doctor, colleague. And yeah, Joel, so can you tell us where you're at right now with your practice with life? Um, I know you're doing some telemedicine and stuff.
Mm.
You got so many cool ideas. I mean, if you ever want a cool idea of what to do or how to engineer something appropriately in any space in your life, Dr. Joel is the guy to talk to.
Thanks, Matt. You know, I'm I've been based out of Los Angeles and Burbank, California for since about 2011, and set up a practice there. I just started renting a space from a provider and a chiropractor, and then by the end of the year, I had kind of taken over the chiropractor's office and jumped into my own building, and then been growing it ever since. And so, one of my whether you're dealing with chronic gut issues or big looming diagnoses or smaller issues like musculoskeletal things that can affect your life and your ability to move. One of my main goals with patients is to help encourage them and make them feel free from fear and have hope that their body can improve and change. And because I found that that's one of the most important emotions to grab onto if you're actually going to evoke some change in your life or get some health accumulation going on. And so a lot of times people have come and they're quite discouraged from, facing lack of solutions for their health issues. And so one of my main goals over the years has been to help them find the right solution, whether it's me or another doctor or a combination of doctors. And so that's been really fun, especially when you get the right combo for that individual patient and they see massive results and a massive health accumulation in their life. I think it's very exciting and very rewarding. That's why I keep doing it every day. And I love it. So
Joel, Dr. Joel, what is the what's kind of we would say like the general your home run patients? What's the kind of patient you really like to is there a genre? Is it male, female, old or younger?
yeah,
Disease
no,
conditions?
I'm good. I'm good with male, females. Both of them, I think, very comfortable. One of the ones I really love working with is kind of the broader chronic autoimmune patients that have multiple system involvement going on, because a lot of times that's very hard for the standard medical model to kind of wrap its head around.
Sure.
And so being able to kind of really evaluate the different inputs to their system and how they got there, and then really kind of start to map out a nice map on how they can hike out of their valley of despair of health and into like a valley of joy and hope and faith and stuff. And so that's very fun to help them do. Part of it is my undergrad degree was physics, and so I graduated with mathematical physics. And so because I wanted to learn how to assess and develop systems and analyze systems, and I had the intention to go into medicine even with that, but I thought that would be one of the ways that I wanted to get there. So I ended up doing pre-med after that, but that was a way that I could kind of assess, because I wanted to know, there's that quote from Einstein that I want to know God's thoughts and the rest are just mere details. And so part of it, I looked back and I said, well, physics is kind of using math to describe the creation. And I wanted to then be able to do my best to understand that and then kind of train my brain how to think in systems like that. And so that's been really helpful in applying, especially when patients come in and they've got like, 5 or 6 major system involvement in their health issues. And then you have to kind of coordinate and then combine like what are the series of steps they need to kind of climb out into health.
Yeah.
And I found too that both Dr. Matt, you and I both did this, but we both got our master's in acupuncture and oriental medicine too. And so I found that was also very helpful because a lot of the Oriental theory applied really well with some of the physics theory that I had learned too, when you kind of think more about energy systems and flow and balance and how to kind of coordinate how the different organs interact. And I find it awesome Western overlap with that. So that also helped add an extra approach to kind of how to Sherlock Holmes the patients out of problems and stuff. So I think I don't know about you, but I love that I have that knowledge. So even if I don't do acupuncture on a regular, just the ability to kind of add that layer into the assessment's been wonderful too. So I'm really thankful, even though there's a lot of work to do that went through that program. So
what do you think about I know in so my wife Amma, she does acupuncture at the office. I don't do it because I never sat for my board exam.
Right,
though I did get the master's in it. So sometimes, as far as like a Christian coming in, sometimes they're concerned about acupuncture. They feel like, maybe it's some woo-woo thing, or there's some there's a lot of negative connotations about it, I think mostly because they're just haven't been introduced to it before, or have a lack of understanding, or heard some interesting things about it. Do you have anything that you tell patients, or you talk to patients about, who maybe have concerns that way, or they feel like their faith in Eastern medicine or acupuncture just doesn't quite mix up, whereas they feel like, they could take Xanax and be fine, but if you put needles in them to help calm them down, that's like, what's going on here?
Totally. Yeah. I think part of it goes back to knowing that acupuncture and Oriental medicine is not an alternative medicine. It is an existing medicine, although it's gone through several stages and shifts and stuff, especially in the last century. That was a complete medical system for one of the most successful populations on the planet for all human history. And the idea was it was to provide treatment and support for all aspects of your life, and was like the hospital system for China for, several thousand years, at least majorly for 2,000 years, and then actually a little longer than that. And so they have ways of treating basically from, fertility. They have a lot of fertility because, having fertility is very important in Chinese medicine. The old happy wife, happy life thing definitely applies to them, and they take that very seriously. And so the concept that women need to suffer through like hormonal or menses problems, or, mood issues related to that is considered like, well, that should be very treatable. And we should be able to help them alleviate that. So I think the idea is it's not based just off of a specific, say, religion, or a religion that maybe conflicts with Christianity, because it actually is people that were observing the human body, God's created human body, and using, a lot of those people were in a agrarian society, so they didn't have microscopes. It was before microscopes and before what we know as like modern chemistry and biochemistry. Although even though they knew some chemistry, they developed gunpowder and whatnot. It was still pre-microscopes and pre-stuff, so they couldn't see cells. So they had to interpret the human body and the flow of the human body, and they had to describe it in a way that people could understand. So the whole lingo seems very, to the Western trained ear, and to the Western medically trained ear especially, sounds very like weird and country bumpkinish and all of that. But when you kind of like put that aside, and almost like a little bit of a Western arrogance aside of like, well, we know everything kind of thing,
right?
And then you have to kind of listen to what they're actually saying, and then you're like, oh, this actually makes really good sense, and I'm actually seeing it in my patients. The idea is that the kind of the fantastical descriptions of chi flow and, this organ is the mother of that organ and all this kind of stuff sounds very kind of mystical, but really it was just very practical speaking that the communities at that time used to describe it, because they were observing it and making correlation and connection on what causes what imbalance is connected to what, and what organ function maybe is connected to what kind of pathology and stuff. And they had to come up with a way to describe it. But it was all pre-microscope and pre-modern chemistry and biochemistry. So the terms they used were not using those biochemical Western scientific terms. But now there's a lot of correlation connected with it. Like a great example is that way back in the day, is if you had, bone issues, then they would treat the kidneys. And now we've learned that there's kidneys, things that regulate the bone and whatnot too. So, or blood, sorry. We can rewind that. So they, if you had anemia, then you would also treat the kidneys. And now we know that erythropoietin is produced from the kidneys. And so that's even something they often will give people on kidney dialysis, is to support healthy blood. And the Chinese knew that if there are certain herbs that strengthen the kidney function, then that also somehow affected good quality of blood and anemia. And so the idea is that that was known over 1,000 years ago, but they didn't know about erythropoietin or even that chemical structure,
Mm-hmm.
or that whole effect. And so the idea is that we kind of, what's nice is to be able to overlap the Western and the Chinese ancient knowledge. And it's not ancient knowledge in the sense of like a occult community that maybe is like trying to counter Western Christian world or something. It's ancient knowledge in that people that spent many hundreds and a couple thousand years observing, documenting, and recording how the human body works, and then figuring out how to then predict future behavior. And then once they had that model down and it was consistent. So one of the concepts in Chinese herbs is like the formula. If it's under like a couple hundred years old, it's considered an immature formula. It hasn't quite come into its maturity yet. So once it's maybe 500 or 800 years old, it's like, okay, this formula has been refined to the point where every time you give this formula, you should be able to expect a certain kind of result if the dosing is correct and all of that. And if that result doesn't come, then it's probably you're using the wrong formula for what the condition is. And so what's neat is that it was very refined, but it's if you look way back in Chinese culture, there was, some Confucianism stuff and Buddhism came into it, but that didn't necessarily direct the actual medicine. That was more of another cultural aspect of which the medicine was supporting a culture, but not, it was, you can look at them kind of independent of each other. You don't have to accept Confucianism or Buddhism in order to appreciate Chinese medicine too. So that, and some people do accept Buddhism and stuff, but that's not required for you to receive benefit and or receive that. So, yeah. And, so even from a physics point of view, one of the terms used to describe how acupuncture works is the whole piezoelectric concept, where if you stress a crystalline structure, then electric discharge occurs, electrons come out. And that's like anyone who used like a little piezoelectric lighter where they click it and they see a little spark. That's the pressure from your click causing a spark on a little crystal structure that's in that lighter, which then ignites it. And so one of the concepts is that there's like a semicrystalline structure of your cartilage and whatnot. And so as the needles go in there, you're basically stimulating that cartilage. And sometimes you get a little electric current flow discharge going out that kind of is connected with the chi flow. So if you feel chi flow, you're like, oh, that's awesome. That's like a whole nother part of my body that, I wasn't aware of, and the Western drugs don't necessarily treat and all that kind of thing. And so it's kind of like, to me, it's like adding a layer to understanding on your body, how it functions, and the beautifulness of the creation of it. So that's my thought. What do you think? What's your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes we equate, like if we can see it and we can, take it in our mouth as a medication, that feels like that's some, real physical experience. But if we can't see it, like, we're talking about the limbic system or the sensory system or the autonomic nervous system, and we're affecting that via a non-oral solution, we think that's like, some spiritual or mystical thing, when in reality, either one of them could potentially be a spiritual thing,
Totally.
if we're always going to, say some sleep aid, or always going towards some, I think about a lot on the, the mental emotional front, going and grabbing this thing that takes care of, say, like Xanax or Zoloft, or I'm not saying these can't be used.
Right.
They can be used just fine.
They serve a purpose, and
they serve a purpose, right?
They're more of emergency medication. That's even how they were studied, was more for short-term emergency use, but in long-term, that's where you run into problems usually. So,
right. Yeah. So basically, most people would not consider that. Or even going, like getting a coffee, like I'm stressed out, I get a coffee, or it makes me feel good. I wake up in the morning, I have a coffee, and it makes me feel good. It feels like, how could I not start my day without a coffee? Which is totally fine. That's great. We want to feel good. We want all those things. But we wouldn't think about that. Like maybe you get acupuncture, or you do biofeedback or neurofeedback, or like the DNRS, dynamic neural retraining stuff. And people would equate that, essentially that medication that they're receiving, that's affecting, I would say like a little deeper layer of their system. It's not real superficial, like the medication will be. And they would equate that with more like, this is like a spiritual experience now. When no, I mean, it's like you're mentioning, they've done studies, especially in Germany, on like acupuncture and these different points that we would call as, more power points for acupuncture,
Right. Sure.
Chinese medicine, so you're like, whoa, you can actually measure the amount of energy coming out of there, and it's way higher than certain other, not so power points
For sure.
in the body.
For sure.
So it's that's my kind of my go-to. So when I try to explain to patients, hey, it's all about how we see it. When it comes to things like, say, a medicine you're not aware of. There are definitely weird stuff out there, but you can just as easily have a spiritual experience with a medication, thinking like the only hope I have is taking that medication or getting that therapy, just as much as you could, say that to getting acupuncture or a massage or, any other therapy. So these are all, they say they're all, tools in a toolbox. And it's nice, I would say, being naturopathic doctors, having background in Chinese medicine, even, background in like osteopathic manipulation, those kind of things, is, having this huge toolbox to draw from, depending on, which patient we see, and what their current need is. But all of those can be utilized essentially without being, some spiritual endeavor, while at the same time somebody else might be using them as a spiritual endeavor, depending on the practitioner. But at the same time, we're holistic practitioners, right? So the physical, the spiritual, the mental, emotional, relational, we play on all those fields.
You have to, you have to
to maximize the health of our patients.